Good. Okay. Well, it is yes, it's just the top of the hour, and I know we have a few more people coming, and but I also want to be respectful of everybody's time. So welcome to our webinar, Leveraging Your Coaching Skills. And I'm just seeing a little bit about who is coming into this webinar today. So it's great. I see some familiar names and some new names as well. So welcome. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to speak a little bit about what we're going to do today so that you kind of have an idea. And I'm so up. Well, a little bit about me first. I forgot that was the first slide. So some of you are new to this webinar, or new to who the heck am I? And I know you can all read. So I just want to say that I am the CEO and founder of Coaching Out of the Box, and I am absolutely passionate about coaching and have been in coaching for 20 plus years now, and created Coaching Out of the Box because I wanted to support as many people as possible in learning coaching, whether they're going to become credentialed coaches, whether they're going to use it in their leadership and their management. And I also wanted to make it easy and relatively cost effective. And it kind of has worked. We've had over 17,000 people through a variety of our programs. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm also just going to switch now to our objectives for today. And I want to, shortly, I'll be introducing our panelists because we have a number of panelists here. And I actually even see some other people who may want to contribute as well, and they can just let Sandra know in the chat area. Because using this particular platform, we have to do a couple of different things. Out of the box view of coaching, opportunities in becoming a coaching educator. We're going to talk about that, what that looks like. Surprising what I would call side effects or benefits of leveraging your coaching skills in a different way besides one-on-one coaching, perhaps, or maybe team coaching. What's the hardest? What's the most joyful? And our panelists have a wealth of wisdom as well, so I know we'll have this unfold. And is it right for you to leverage your coaching abilities in different ways? And I know some of you may be brand new to coaching too, and so hopefully this will be informative for you. We also have we welcome questions, and I have, and I'm wondering if Sandra, if you could just reveal yourself for a moment, if she can hear me, and she's there. And well, anyway, Sandra, there she is. And Sandra, if you want to just let them know, where could they put their questions? Sandra's going to assist with the kind of the technical side of things and managing any questions and things like that. Could you just say a little bit about that? What would work for you?
I certainly can. If you use your mouse and drag it to the bottom of your screen, you'll have a bar that pops up, and you'll see chat and Q&A. And you can click on either chat and Q&A, and they'll open up two separate windows. Please feel free to put your comments and your questions in the chat or in the Q&A as well.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Sandra. And what is most important is we've got some very fabulous panelists who are going to contribute to the conversation today, because it won't be just me talking the whole time. Hopefully that will be very pleasing to you. And so what I'd like to do is, and I'm just going to get another little screen up here for a second because I realized I made there we go. Margie Hammond, I would like to introduce Margie, or I'd like to have Margie Hammond come on. Just good, there's Margie Hammond. Margie, would you be willing, oh, it's so great to see your face. Would you be willing to say a little bit about yourself, where you're located, and what you've done as a coaching educator?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity, Allison, to participate.
Yes.
I'm located on the East Coast in St. John, New Brunswick. I am a 32-year employee with an East Coast energy company, and I've had the privilege of bringing this program into our company over, I would say, the past 5 years, and we've put about 300 people through the program. So that's the education of me. I'm a senior internal consultant in the HR world. And I'm also an executive coach. I've been since 2003. I also have my own part-time coaching business. So it's a little bit about me.
Fantastic. And I heard you say you've put how many people through this?
Approximately 300 over the.
So 300. So I'm kind of guessing you might have learned a few things along the way.
Oh yeah.
So we look forward to hearing some of those things. And next up, I'm going to have Kwesi Mobalekwa introduce himself. And if you could just sort of follow that same path of where you're located, what's your experience as a coaching educator, and just a little bit about yourself. Hello, Kwesi. Just welcome and just unmute yourself. There we go.
There we go. Hi, Allison. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks so much for being here. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. I'm in White Rock, British Columbia, on the other side of the country. And I've been in healthcare and post-secondary education and was able to bring coaching out of the box into both those organizations. And here in BC, it's the program that we use for all the health organizations, British Columbia. So we've had several thousand actually go through it. Been doing this.
Oops. Is anybody else struggling to hear Kwesi? He's gone. It's frozen for a second. So I think what we'll do until that gets sorted out, because sometimes, you know, the internet sometimes. So Kwesi, we're just going to kind of move along, and I am going to have Jim Hogan introduce himself, and I'm delighted as well to have Jim here. And then, Kwesi, are you working? Are you back? You back in? Can we hear you? No, we're not hearing you. So we'll just hang tough with Kwesi. And, oh, no, wait a minute. I think I heard you. Yeah, no, there's something. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, I could there briefly. Yes, go ahead.
Who or Jim?
Go ahead, Kwesi, you can finish. Sorry, it stopped.
Okay, so healthcare and post-secondary education are the places that we've brought the program across all the health authorities. So, and yeah.
Yeah, you know what? We're gonna move on to Jim for a moment. It's still acting weird, so sorry, Kwesi. Anyway, what you might have missed is he's also been very a coaching educator, a coach, and been very passionate about coaching as well. And hopefully that the speed of the internet will adjust or whatever as things unfold. Jim, sorry about the little mix-up there. Anyway, Jim Hogan, I'm delighted to have Jim here as well, and thank you so much for coming as well. So go ahead, Jim, and introduce yourself.
Sure. I was invited here, and I feel quite privileged. I think I am given the new perspective from a new coaching educator. I am actually taking the Train the Trainer course here at Coaching Out of the Box starting in September. I've kind of been a trainer my whole life, facilitator. I come from a sales background. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, so a little farther down the East Coast than Margate, and have traveled a lot of the world, both Canada, still haven't seen enough of Canada, but do love that, a lot in Europe, and just the people that I have met. And in my more recent formal education into coaching, I've become a fan of Coaching Out of the Box, the model, how easy it is, and I am just seeing opportunities open up around the globe for this type of, and I'm looking at it as a management process, because coaching as managers, coaching as leaders is just the way that the largest part of the workforce is really going to be jumping in, which is the millennials. You know, they're right at about 80 million jumping in right now, and that's what they respond to. They don't respond to the old scientific management processes and procedures, which you know, they fight and the other side fights back down, and it's creating a lot of roadblocks. So I see lots of opportunities in the coaching world just for helping people understand the power of coaching inside of business.
Ah, okay. Oh, lots there, and I couldn't agree more with the millennials comment. And in fact, I get calls quite frequently from organizations who, you know, they're really finding that this is an approach to use. So it's great to hear your comments as well. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to flip to a different slide. And I want to just say, why are we talking about this? I mean, we have a bit of an idea, but I want to just speak to that a little bit, and which touches on some of what Jim has said, Margie, and as well Kwesi has said, just a little bit, and kind of a bit, I'll just step out of the box for a bit. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to stop this sharing and just have us up on the screen. And of course, there we go, stop share. So theoretically, at this exact moment, you should be able to just see the four of us, and Sandra is here, but she's not on camera, which is totally fine, Sandra, not expecting that. And I know also, as I'm seeing in the chat area, we have some other coaches and coaching educators as well. So we welcome if you want to chime in at some point. The thing is, what I want to say, and why Jim touched on it, and so did others as well, but I feel that this way of leveraging your coaching skills, for those of you who've already got a certification perhaps, or taken a fair bit of coaching training, this is an amazing way to accomplish a few different things. And one is that there's a need for it. And so I consider it an emergency, quite frankly, that in organizations, we need all hands on deck. And we have to tap into the wisdom, the brilliance, the thoughts, the ideas of everyone. We can't be just managing from the top, as, and I know, Jim, that wasn't the exact expression you used, but this is a fantastic tool for doing that. Also, as coaches, and why I'm sort of so passionate about this is, when I got into coaching, I never imagined that I figured that I would coach people. And I did, and I have, and I do. But the coaching educator side of me was not in my plan, and it evolved. And what I discovered was so amazing about what it did for me as a coach myself, in having to deliver this, or train people, or teach people how to coach, and so on. So and it added another tool in my toolkit. I was am an external coach, so having clients to work with and money to make and all of those sorts of things, it added another revenue stream. And the thing is that it's proven to be useful in organizations. It's proven to be useful, well, quite frankly, as you can see my vision, to be valuable for everyone. And so, in fact, and just one other little thing I'd like to mention, what if in an organization, and I think some of our panelists can relate to this, you had improved listening, you had improved communication, you had improved conflict resolution, you had improved relationships, positively impacted relationships, improvement in team dynamics and team communication. ability to engage in conversations that are solutions focused and promote accountability. What would an organization say if that was happening? And so what I'm curious about is, so I've spoken a fair bit, and I'd love to ask our panelists, and I don't want to put people on the spot directly, but I'm curious, Margie, you know, you're in the rough and tumble energy sector in an organization. What are you seeing, and what is it doing? What has it done for you to be doing this?
So if I think about when we started, we ran a pilot, I'm going to say 5 years ago, and we handpicked the people to be in the pilot. And the feedback was really, really good. Then we had a change in leadership. Things kind of pushed aside. And a few years later, 2 or 3 of the people that had participated in that pilot group, who are now senior leaders, came back and said, I want to run this program for people in the large area of the company, because they had found the value of it. And so there's one area of our company where everybody has gone through it, and I would say that's probably a couple hundred people. So in that area, they all recognize the language of 5 skills, and you're starting to see the habits being created and how to have conversations. So as we continue down the path, more and more people are talking about it. They're using the language. And so I would say we have a way to go yet, but I am noticing that it's picking up all the time. So I mean, I'm already for another year.
So yes, okay. And what is it, I'm curious, what is it doing for you?
Absolutely. So I love to help people, enable people to move forward in a better way. I get the value of the coaching conversations. Thanks to people like you, Allison, that taught me to help me get there. It is just so needed in the world today. So even if it's one person at a time, if I can help someone get there, I'll do it. This is my way of being able to get to more people. I'm very loyal to my company. I know it's a great company to work for, and I would like to make sure they have the new leaders and some of the older leaders have new tools in their toolkit that will. Our company has been around for a long time, and we're moving from our culture is shifting a bit, and this is a really good thing to throw into that mix. It's change the way the conversations take place, and so that's kind of my goal. And for me, it helps me stay on my toes with my own coaching skills, and replay them every time I do the training with folks. And it's a really good reminder. I think it makes me better at what I do when I'm not delivering training. So, thank you.
Oh, wow. There's a lot you said there. Thank you for that. And I'm also curious, and I know we're having a little bit of an issue with people being able to see the screens and or the various panelists, and I just want to do a quick check-in. Sandra, is there anything you want me to do specifically to shift that?
This is one of those features of Zoom that is dependent on the actual attendee and their view. So there's nothing, unfortunately, that you can do.
Okay.
Just trying to work through it. At the top right of your screen, you should see some little gray icons that will allow you to change the view between gallery and speaker view, and that should change it from seeing just one to seeing everyone.
Oh, to flip it to gallery view. If that is that what you're meaning, Sandra?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Hopefully that helps, so you're not all just staring at me constantly. So okay, and I don't have gallery view as my choice, by the way, Sandra. I just have speaker view and then this other one that I click to briefly, and not sure if that'll shift it, but anyway. And I'm curious, Kwesi, now hopefully we can hear you a bit this time. You heard it, so what are you seeing, or what has happened for you as a coaching educator? Both what are you seeing happen, as well as what has the experience been like for you?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so what's happening for us in healthcare is that there is even more desire for people at the lower mid-level coaching, manager, director level. They're crying out for more. Okay, so yesterday I was with a bunch of people from about 11 different organizations, and this, really speaks to coaching is a tool which can help effect the culture change in an organization, whether that is in the manager, leader, development, or whether it's about how teams something you. If you view it into part of the way in which you interact and you come from a place of curiosity, there's a lot less judgment, a lot more invitation for dialogue and discussion, ergo, hopefully arriving to better places than you would have on your own. So all I'm seeing is a demand for more by both the individuals in the organization and the organizations themselves. And I'm now going into nonprofits and municipality, where they're saying they want to do a culture change and use this as a means to help start changing the way people present and show up.
Okay, and what about, and if you addressed it, I didn't catch it. What has it done for you? For you personally, having to educate people about coaching?
I am a far better listener.
Mm. And it's doing that. It's doing that lovely thing again, Kwesi. I'm gonna. You can throw it in the chat area. If you see the chat thing up on your screen, you can add in a few things. But we'll just pull back on that for a sec, okay? And I also just want to check into Sandra, if there's anybody who has also wanted to participate in or have some comments. That's great. Just keep me posted on that. Jim, what about you?
As I said, I'm kind of the newbie perspective, and right now I'm knocking on a lot of doors. I mean, the way you present the mission, what if companies had this culture of listening, of helping people propel themselves, not being forced to do things. My sales background gives me a lot of the soft skills, whether it was a formal training or not, and the coaching has really fit into that. One of the things that I've been using as a foundation for the coaching I'm currently doing and some of the entries into the businesses that I'm talking to is emotional intelligence. And I'm really leaning on, I talked about millennials because the largest workforce coming in, and I think, as you said, it's an emergency. I think there's probably about a 3, 4, 5-year window right now of transfer of knowledge, and that's the way I look at this. So I'm talking to people about, I'm on the way out, but I have a lot of experience, and there's people older than me. So what do we have, 5 generations in the workforce right now, and another one coming in, and the ones going out. This is new for everybody, but that means there's a lot of experience, and finding ways for people to communicate is not going to happen unless we can facilitate it. And that's what coaching does. It really can facilitate a conversation. There's a lot of millennial myths when you talk about, I think the one that is, besides with, entitlement and things like that, we'll just leave those to the side. They are stuck with electronics and their tools, and what is missing is the discussion, the one-to-one communication, the innate, how to create, how to gather the different generations together. And the conversations I'm having right now are perking a lot of ears. And it is all of a sudden they're going, that's an interesting perspective that, how do we transfer this knowledge from my generation to the millennials so they can drive the future of business, commerce, of government, of everything else. And some of the training that I've done over the past couple of years has been inside of some companies here in Atlanta, and I can throw a stone and hit 5 or 6 Fortune 500 companies, but there's tons of mid-sized businesses that are going, we're having trouble with our millennials, so we're starting to talk. And it's a whole lot of fun to create those conversations. And I think the ball is rolling, and that's why I'm jumping on the educator side and really want to be a trainer with coaching out of the box, because first off, I don't have to go reinvent the wheel. You already have the treadmill for me to jump on. I just need to start working it, and it's an easy process that people can grasp. It's not hard to do, and then so I'm having fun with that.
Oh, great. Well, that's good. And I'm seeing some good questions. Or I saw a couple of things in the, thank you, Jim. And
Welcome.
I'm seeing some things in the chat area, and I'm responding to one, and I apologize if I'm not saying this correctly, because I'm looking at the sort of your sign on, and it says Zena Suiza. Anyway, but this is a question. So Allison, does a coaching educator provide a new vocabulary for manager, leader, team members, a coach approach? Does this refer to actually educating them? Example, oh, hang on, it just disappeared for a sec. EI variables, stages of teams. Okay, so it could, and I agree with you. It does provide a new vocabulary. It's another tool in a leader and manager's toolkit that they can use. And a term that I like being used as well is that they can have more coach-like conversations. They're not all going to become certified coaches. That's not realistic. Some will, get the coaching bug and decide, you know what, I want to add that as becoming a credentialed coach to what I do, because they may be, as Jim was talking about, kind of segueing out and leaving it to the millennials, and so they want to do this as an additional thing that they do. But it's that ability to engage in those conversations using a process that very quickly, in even 5-minute increments, they can start to go, they can work with someone and use some of those tools to have that forward movement. Because, of course, as all of us know, coaching is about moving forward, supporting someone in moving forward and taking action. So even I've done some demos where it's 5-5-5 live in 5, and it's like you just have these short little conversations. And here's a cool side effect of having to teach people how to coach or use a coaching process, is that you have to put yourself on the spot when you're literally doing this. And I'm going to speak a little bit about that in a few minutes, about mastery. But it actually is a great, it really gets your coaching chops going, because you're doing it in quick snippets, and you're having to try to, make sure that you're engaging somebody for a short space of time and having an outcome of some sort that's forward moving, that's action oriented. And I'm not sure if I've completely answered what you were saying, Zena Suiza, but I hope that helps. And I'm just seeing also, here's, it looks like Carol. More curious and more humble. Causes me to check in with myself, my assumptions, values, beliefs. It pushes to up my game. Here's another one. Helen. Hi, Helen. I found the skills that I have developed through delivering the training has improved my general facilitation skills in other areas. Yes, and obviously this webinar is, everybody's connected to coaching out of the box in some way. But I just want to say, I want to kind of mention this whole area about mastery in coaching. And yes, of course, we want you to coach as many people for great amounts of time, because the more that you can do that. And I want to mention a book. It's Malcolm Gladwell. Some of you may be familiar with him, and he wrote a book called Outliers, Outliers. I love that book, and he talked about what makes people successful, how to be successful, and I can see Kwesi laughing there. And I mean, there's so many things that he talks about, but in terms of coaching and upping your game, as Carol, I think, was mentioning, and maybe that was Helen too, I'm doing 6 things as I'm doing this, was that it takes, one of the things that he said, that mastery in any calling, his research has come up with, only arrives after 10,000 hours of training and study, toil, and hard work. Now, some people might not want to hear that. And I was in a conversation yesterday with a number of very experienced coaches, and we were talking about what makes a great coach and what is mastery. And one person was talking about, well, when you first learn, so for example, when you're leveraging your coaching skills and you're adding to your coaching, in other words, having to educate people about coaching, you have explicit skills. You've got a model, you've got a process, you've maybe got some slides that you're using and materials and so on and so forth. However, where the magic happens as you do that is when it becomes like a symphony. In other words, you just get going and you're not reading a script. You're not really following a process. You are, but you're not. It's kind of in your bones, and you're just moving along, surfing the waves, dipping and falling. Well, hopefully not falling too much, but you will fall, and moving, and I hope this is making sense. And I have to tell you that when I had to start to teach people how to coach, that's what happened to me. Because I had to put myself on the spot. I mean, it's even when you're coaching an individual, which is very, very, very important. But when I had to stand up in front of people and had to kind of know what the heck I was talking about and put myself on the spot, because one of the things that I feel very strongly about, and I hope, I know the others do, I'm guessing, and we'll hear your comments, and then I'm gonna hear what others would say about this, is that to be a really good coaching educator requires that you're constantly being coached, like while you're teaching it. You're not lecturing, you're not telling, you're literally in the moment. Somebody asks you a question and you flip it around and you start to coach them. And so I'm just curious, and this will also give me a chance to observe some of the chat area. What's coming up for you? I'm curious if Margie or Jim or Kwesi, if we can either in the chat, maybe we'll try that. What do you think of that? What's coming up for you as I mentioned that? And
Hey, Allison.
Go ahead, Jim.
When you go back to, being coach-like consistently, and I remember the classes inside and outside of Coaching Out of the Box that I've taken, and the coaching that I'm receiving as a developing coach, you learn to identify why people are doing it different, and you understand the basis of that. So the part of the coaching education is helping people understand why you are doing what you do. So it is not walking into a conversation with bias. It is not thinking that you have to have an answer. It is pulling the best out of people versus telling people what to do. And that's a really hard shift. One of the people that I'm coaching is just so busy, and they always say, I don't have time to teach somebody. I don't have time to get it out of them. I just need to tell them how to do it. And then they have to do it again and again and again. And it takes, like, you keep hitting people on the head going, okay, slow down for a second. What if you did it different? What would it look like? How would it feel? How much more time would you have if they could do it by themselves and you only had to put your check mark on the item? And they'd go, it'll be a whole lot better, but I don't have time. So describe, why is that? See, people dig in and they go, you're right. I'm sorry. You hate leading, but that's the truth. It is enabling people to do and be the best that they can be. And that's the future of leader. Oh, it's always been leadership. You need followers in order to be a leader, but you don't need followers to be a manager.
Well, okay. And so that's what you're noticing and what's happening. And I thank you, Jim. And I also noticed in the chat, I see Carol has also mentioned, and I love this. We're getting lots of chat going on, and others are mentioning some other resources as well. And I saw Carol mention mentor coaching, meaning having to mentor other coaches and support them as they grow, which could be the leaders and managers, but also people deepening even further, is, she said, Carol has said, is a great process for feedback and is yet another way to be a coach educator. And I'm just curious, Carol, I'm not sure that I can do this, but would you be willing to say a bit more about that if I put you on the spot? Because I know you've learned a lot from that, and I'm just watching the. I'm not sure if that's sure. Okay, so then that means we can promote Carol to panelist, and so I've just done that. So Carol, could you say a bit more about that? Carol Gabana is also a very experienced coach. I didn't know you were going to be here today, and so please go ahead, Carol. Another Maritimer, by the way. Yeah. Let's see now if you just come off your mute. Hopefully we can see. Oh, you need to unmute yourself. Good.
Yes,
go ahead. Great.
Thanks. I'm not on my webcam.
That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to be on the webinar today because I was supposed to be coach educating.
Oh, I see.
Yes, okay. But I switched out with Mark.
Oh, I kind of.
So yeah, so mentor coaching. What occurred to me was the comment that one of the other participants had about becoming a better coach requires feedback, among other things, and that reminded me about mentor coaching, because that's a great way that we can get feedback as coaches. In fact, it's one of the almost the only ways we can get it intuitively if we see that we're getting positive results from our clients. And that's partly useful, but what's really useful is getting feedback from other coaches, specifically a mentor coach who is skilled in giving coach approach feedback, who's really knowledgeable about the core competencies of coaching, and who's able to coach the coach toward developing their own kind of improvement plan, if you will.
Oh, okay. And so I'm curious about something, if it's okay, Carol, if I can just probe a tiny bit more.
You can.
Great, because this is a good point to be making. So I'm, as you've been mentor coached, as you've experienced being mentor coached, what can you give us an example of something that that the feedback you received kind of had an impact for you?
Yeah. So one of the pieces of feedback I received, and it was something, and when we do coach approach feedback, we usually ask, how did that go for you? What would you like to do differently? One of the things that I had an inkling that I needed to do differently was more appreciative kind of support and acknowledgement. And that was validated for me by the mentor coach, and so they coached me in a conversation about what that could look like. like maybe giving an appreciative comment. I noticed that whether it's a comment about the person's values or their work that the good thinking they're doing in the conversation or whatever it is, giving them that observation and then pausing and letting that sink in for them and seeing how it lands for them and just making sure that they actually take that in. Because often we'll just kind of, flick it away as if it was a fly, say, oh, well, and move on, when often it's an important thing to do. And yeah, so that was one of the things in my mentor coaching that caused me to really pay attention to that then as I was continuing growing as a coach.
Excellent, fabulous, a fabulous additional piece, and I love that. And I see Kwesi's making appreciative versus not judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in other words, and you just also highlight something that is so, I agree with you. Of course, I'm going to agree with you. Well, I do agree with you because it's correct. Is people cannot be acknowledged or encouraged enough nowadays. I cannot tell you how many times I used to think, God, how often do I need to say this? I mean, am I overdoing it? And it's amazing what it does for people when you point out something that they are doing well or something that you're noticing is different. You're not going on and on necessarily, and that's all you do. But because you know what? And I'm sure you get it and the others do too, they're all by themselves half the time. The stuff is coming at us so fast and so furious. I don't think we've ever had a time of this much change so fast. But I'm not a historian, so I could be missing that, and I don't want to be arrogant about it. But this just every single day, there are so many changes. There's so much coming at us, just technologically, right? That we just can feel so overwhelmed. So in the darkness of all of that, to have somebody like Carol or Margie or Jim or Kwesi or any of you, Helen, all the different people, to point out something that you think they're doing well or moving through, how valuable is that? So thank you. And you know what? I noticed Helen has participated sometimes before, and I'm curious, Helen, I don't know where if you're okay with it, but have you got anything to add to our conversation so far? Because Helen, thank you, Carol, by the way, because Helen is also a very experienced coach and coaching educator, and I'm just curious, I didn't know Helen was going to be here. If that would, she may not still be here, so maybe I'll just wait to see it come up. Ah, yes, she is. Okay, so Helen, I'm just going to, here we are, move you to panelist, and then you can come off your mute. And there you are. Hello. So,
hi everyone.
Join the conversation.
So in terms of my perspective as coaching educator and my experience, how that's, so I think, sorry, just trying to reflect a little bit here, but I think, as I've said in the chat, I mean, what I've found is that every single time I deliver coaching out of the box, and that has been my main experience in coaching education, although I do other things as well, I find I really have to be on top of my game. I think I'm very conscious that every time I deliver a coaching demo, I'm needing to be the best coach I possibly can be. So it means I can't be lazy or complacent in terms of how I coach, particularly when you're coaching in front of 20 other people who, are watching everything you do and say. But I think it's also a good opportunity to really, I think, educate other people about what coaching really is. I mean, as we've talked on, I think, a previous webinar, many people still outside of the coaching world don't really understand the difference between coaching, counseling, mentoring, consulting. And so I think every opportunity we have through demos, through education, to actually pass on that message helps all of us.
Yes. Well said, and very articulate. And this business of being upping your, having to really be on, and which forces us, because I don't know about anybody else, but that's how I learn quite often, is having to just kind of. Margie's nodding her head because you've been in the, you've done this many times, and Kwasi's nodding his head too. Is you're putting your feet. What's the word? The feet to the fire is really what it is. And as uncomfortable as it feels at times, it just does it for us, right? And I think also I want to point something else that I noticed in the chat as well, is real life situations. How we teach this, or how we want people to be doing this, is not role plays, not pretend coaching, that you've got, exact in your, that you're bringing these coaching skills to just be able to kind of, he or she asks a question, okay, flip it back, start coaching them briefly. Of course, you're not going to go on for an hour or something, but use that, because the more you can do that and demonstrate it and model it throughout, the more that people will, they will learn and develop from that. I'm also, I just want to check in for a second. I also want to check in about questions that are coming up, because the chat area has been going fast and furious, and I might have missed something, and I'm curious if you have a question, or maybe I'll just check with Sandra. Are there any questions that have come up as we've been talking?
There was a question that I believe has been answered, and
okay.
Is there a value to role-playing activities as part of being a coaching educator? Which Kwasi then said, using real-life situations in the coaching workshop demos is extremely powerful.
Yes, versus the role playing. Yes, absolutely. We really don't want role playing. It's just people are sharp. They're smart. They get a, not a con, but they get when somebody's pretending and so on. The only time I've done it, and it's kind of funny, is when I do the example of make right, make wrong. In other words, I have some lovely victim initially, and I just demonstrate coaching in that way. So I start off, I mean, it's real and they're bringing a real situation, but I am actually telling them what to do. I'm talking all the time. I'm fixing it for them. I'm doing all the anti-coach things, so to speak. And then I stop that, and I know others do this as well, and then I flip immediately into starting all over again, just at the very beginning, and using being coach-like and using the coaching process. And people just, it's a real great way for people to see the difference, and they see themselves in that. I mean, and I don't know if anybody else sees this, but we're all in recovery from telling people what to do, or having to be experts, or having to know all the time, oh, well, here's what you got to do. You got to fix it. And having to pull that back and tap into someone else's thinking and what is possible is a whole different thing. To have to do that. And so, and I'm curious, as coaching educators who are here, and also mentor coaches as well, what else have you noticed as you're educating more and more leaders and managers and staff people and physicians and accountants and all kinds of salespeople? What are you noticing is coming out of that? For them and for you? What are you seeing is occurring? Oops.
So Allison, it's Margie.
Yes, go ahead.
What I noticed is that they get a whole lot more satisfaction thinking for themselves other than me thinking for them. And demos that we do in front of a group, I'm very patient. I'll wait a long time. one day answer.
Mhm.
They do, and it just drives it home so much that these people are not. There's nothing wrong. They can fix.
Yes.
And you know, in business, too often what I find is that managers are too busy trying to fix everything for people, not allowing people to learn how to fix things themselves, and so they make their job tougher because people keep coming back to them and asking them, what do I need to do? And they'll stop and say, well, here's what you need to do. So this gives them another way to approach the problem, and it helps them develop their people, which is what they should be. So there's the value in an organization. And with my coaching clients is I love it when they start to think, well, you know, I guess I do have the answers. You know, so that's what it does for me, for them. I think there's some value there.
Right. Okay, thank you. That's so important. And what, I'm just curious, what has been the most joyful part of this?
It's when you see it. For me, when I see it in their face, and I always do feedback with the groups that I deliver to, and the feedback is tremendous about how much it's helped them manage their people, manage the family, manage whatever. And so we get a lot of really positive feedback from the program. So.
Alison, can I just
Yes.
add a little bit to that?
Yes.
One of the key findings, or the key successes I think I found, is that where you've actually got an intact team that you're actually delivering the coaching skills with, they develop a new language, they develop a new way of actually talking to each other because they've all been through the same experience. And so their approach to solving problems and meetings, they just start using coach approach language, coaching processes in things broader than just coaching conversations. But because they've all been through the training at the same time, they can relate to it. And then obviously they can start talking to others outside of that team about the benefits, and hopefully you can then start delivering that training more broadly than just that particular team.
Right. Oh, that's yes, that's a good one. I love that. What you're saying is they develop this way of communicating with each other. And I bet Kwesi's nodded his head, and I'm not sure if we can hear you, but I bet you've seen something. Excuse me. I'm curious. I'm guessing you've seen that as well.
Oh,
Oh, unfortunately, it's not doing its thing, but he's nodded his head. You know, the other thing that I've seen, and always is it's actually surprising. It surprised me initially when I was first doing this, was how many people would come back. You know, maybe they took it. You know, we put them through a 2-day or something like that. I mean, it varies, but. And then they come back the next day. This is just what gave me so much joy and was so surprising to me, is the comments around that they went home and because we asked them to use some of what they're learning, and they come back and they share some of the most heartfelt, meaningful stories of conversations. I'll never forget this one fellow. He had gone and he came back. He was very emotional. He had a teenage son, and they hadn't been speaking for basically, he said, about 3 years. I mean, it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. And he came back, and somehow around dinner, or they were, you know, at that time, and he started to use some of the coaching skills. For example, listening and being curious and questioning, etc. And he couldn't believe it. He hadn't had a conversation like that with his son in all that period of time. It was game changing. He was floored at what it did. And I can't tell, I will say it happens over and over again, because of course we're dealing with the whole person. And this isn't about simply their work life. They're human beings, and if they're having issues and challenges in their other parts of their life, it impacts their work. It has to. It just has to, and that surprised me. I was quite taken at first. Now I'm obviously much more used to it, but the impact that has on people. And I saw a number of heads shaking or nodding, excuse me. And so I really appreciate it. And I'm also noticing that we've only got about 5 minutes left. And I'm just wanting to mention a couple of other things. And so, of course, please reach out to us, of course, if you want to talk more about this, you want to ask more questions, you want to find out more information, all of that kind of thing, of course. And the other thing is, I'm curious, what is one thing that you're walking away with from today as a result of coming to this webinar? What are you walking away with? And I'd love to see comments in the chat area. What was one thing that was of value for you? So I'm giving it a moment. But I'm also thinking I've got another panelist who unfortunately couldn't get here at the beginning, and I know Carolyn, thank you so much for coming. And I just, what connection I can see being coached, like the impact. And as I'm asking that question, Carolyn, what would you like to add to that?
Well, there's nothing like sliding in the last minute. Sorry about that. I thought it was maybe an hour and a half.
Okay.
Sorry, everyone. You know, I guess, interestingly enough, I came from a medical appointment. And I would have been here, I would have been online in the last half hour, except that as I walked into our condo, a neighbor's door was open, and my neighbor was sitting there waiting for the ambulance. She made it down the stairs. So I stayed with her. That's why
yes.
I'm late.
Oh, no, that's...
However, I'm sharing that as well because I went into coach mode. What happened? Well, I felt, tell me more. You know, the coaching skills are, you know, transferable everywhere, anytime. By the time the paramedics came, I had all the information, and she was feeling pretty woozy and not up to sharing. So I just thought I'd give that contribution that, you know, it helps me personally, it helps me professionally, and look at that. It can even help in an emergency situation like that, going into coach mode.
Wow. Yes, it's everywhere. The impact is and I'm seeing Helen say, has reinforced for me the benefit of coaching education personally. And I'm just wondering, thank you, Carolyn, and anybody else who's been one of our wonderful panelists, who I so appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come and participate. Margie, Kwasi, Jim, Helen, and Carolyn, and you did the right thing, obviously. Now, what was my question? I'm forgetting what I was going to say. Of course, that doesn't happen to anybody else here. But what else? Anything else you want to add before we end today's webinar? Fabulous first aid. Oh, I love that. Lori saying fabulous first aid. Okay. Coaching is pulling the best out of people, not telling them what to do. Love that. Yes. Huge, huge. That's what we want to do. Anybody else as our panelist? Jim, it looks like you have something to say.
It's part of my coaching journey, becoming a certified coach, is I keep knowing that I have less answers as time goes, I think. And if I don't listen deeply and respectfully every single time, and I think it was either Margie or Helen was saying, if you aren't the best that you can be when you're you're on the spot, if you're doing demos or whatever else, if you aren't there, then you're not sending the message that has to be sent, because it is so powerful. I think, you know, the future companies that survive and become nimble and can adjust quickly, because you can empower people by teaching them how to come up with answers for themselves versus just always asking for answers. And I think that's just so powerful.
Well said, well said, and thank you so much for everyone who's attended, and especially our panelists. I'm just honored that you could take the time out to come today. So thank you so much. And we're right at the top of the hour, so I'll let everybody go, and hope to see do more panelists types of webinars again, because you see, the wisdom is from everybody. It isn't all on one person's shoulders. So thanks again, everybody, and bye-bye.
Thank you.